Today, we are going to take a closer look at Micron Technology. This memory company has had an amazing week. We can see on the day it was up roughly 4.4%. And in the past 5 days, the stock is killing it, up roughly 20%. There's a lot of great news. Also, some competitive news that I think every investor should know. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so before we start off, let me just say I do not own any positions in Micron Technologies, but this is the best place you're going to find any semiconductor news. So I talk about those popular names, and I also talk about the non-popular names. Yesterday, I asked if I should do a weekly AMD video, and I got a lot of great response saying yes. Let me know in the comments below if Micron is one, or just the memory space in general, because we're going to talk about a little bit of different memory companies. What are some other maybe weekly episodes you would want to see? Micron, the memory space, maybe I can get some information here. Let me know in the comments below. But Micron, killing it, up roughly 20% in the past 5 days. We're going to see Citi increase their price target. But overall, the momentum of AI is creating this massive need for memory. And we see it obviously in the data center space. We see it with the massive capital expenditure. And we're expecting it to eventually enter into the consumer space, be it your automotive, your robotics, your phone, your laptop, and whatever. So that's the overall bullish case for Micron. Now, one of the biggest bearish cases is competition and kind of eventually maybe going back to some form of commodity market, because they are a lot of players. At least right now, it's mainly more on three companies, SK Hynix and Samsung. But let's start off with, I want to say, maybe some competitive news. So let's get rid of the bad news, and then we'll take a closer look at some of the good news. So the first bad news is this: SK Hynix, so the biggest competitor and the biggest market share of HBM, which is the memory that's used on AI accelerator, completes the world's first HBM4 development and readies mass production. This came out on September 12th of 2025. Now, this is big, right? Because this is the next leg of the HBM market, is HBM4. This is what NVIDIA is most likely, it's not most likely, this is what NVIDIA is going to use for their Rubin platform. The Rubin platform comes out next year. But obviously, since Rubin is coming out next year, you need that solution before that. You're not just going to put that solution the day before you release the product, right? You need it a few quarters. You need it even a year before, so you can test out, make sure everything's working fine, do your kind of quality checks and everything. So SK Hynix, kind of having it first, continues to show that at least for HBM4, maybe SK Hynix is going to continue to hold the market share position. Now, necessarily, I wouldn't say, since Micron is the number 2 in HBM, it would be extremely bullish for Micron to have been first, but I don't think it's necessarily bearish because the market leader continues to be the market leader in this market. There's a lot of markets there. So they talk about it. They say ready production. What one is hopeful is Micron is reporting earnings in 2 weeks from now, September 23rd, I believe is the actual date. What we're hopeful is during that Q&A session, analysts ask questions about their HBM4 development. What are some of the timelines? Are those timelines being pushed ahead? Are they being pushed behind because of some delays? What is going on? And depending on that commentary, it can create that bullish and bearish sentiment. Because we have earnings so quickly or so soon from now, I don't think we'll hear much from Micron until then. But that is definitely going to be a critical space, because the HBM4 being the newer product, if you're able to produce it to your market, if NVIDIA likes it and they decide to roll with it, then you have the ability to continue to have a strong technology with some high margins. So that's what you need to keep a close eye on during the upcoming earnings. Now, the second kind of competitive bearish news is this, and I don't think it's bearish, but maybe the market might be spinning it. NVIDIA is reportedly ordering a lot of money, $144 million of memory chips from Samsung. And this is for the GDDR7. This type of memory is the newest kind of generation of memory used for consumer products. Samsung seems to have won this for various NVIDIA products. The first product that they are reportedly winning for is the Blackwell B40 AI GPUs. The second one that I've heard is for the Rubin CPX, which is a new type of GPU that NVIDIA has recently announced. So the bearish case here is like, why is NVIDIA going to Samsung instead of Micron? I personally believe the reason is there could be some bearish thoughts, but there's also some reasons why it's not as scary as maybe some might think. The first thing is, I believe NVIDIA wants Micron to focus on HBM. And to make HBM, you have to use a lot of DRAM, which is this GDDR7. It's a type of DRAM memory. And to make HBM, you're actually using a lot of that inventory. NVIDIA doesn't want, in my theory, Micron to not focus in HBM, because if Micron doesn't focus in HBM, the only sole supplier is going to be SK Hynix. And for NVIDIA, that's bad, right? Because SK Hynix will then have the pricing power. NVIDIA wants to make sure Micron focuses in the HBM market, and it's giving that to, it's going to make sure that Micron focuses in it. Samsung is also one that's failing. It's failing really bad in HBM. But NVIDIA wants to throw it a lifeline. Again, very similar. NVIDIA wouldn't want Micron and SK Hynix to be the only two players alive in the advanced memory players, because then those two players have amazing pricing power. They want to make sure that there's even more. And while they might not give HBM orders to Samsung, they're going to give weaker down orders like the GDDR7 to, again, continue to fuel and make sure that they continue to invest. Eventually, I do believe there's going to be a market where Samsung does come into the HBM. But at least now you can say, look, they're focusing still on DRAM development. Eventually, they're going to use that DRAM for HBM. But right now, I'd rather have my two players, SK Hynix and Micron, focus on HBM instead. I hope what I was trying to project makes sense, is why NVIDIA wants them to survive, but also why it's not necessarily the biggest bearish case for Micron. Micron can definitely make more money based off its HBM products instead, and they should mainly focus on that. And NVIDIA wants maybe some nice sole supplies because Samsung needs to get rid of that DRAM. All right, so the next thing I want to take a closer look at is some bullish sentiments. And I do believe these bullish sentiments are what's driving a lot of this stock price growth in the past 5 days, this 20% killer. The first thing is price targets. So we did have two price targets this week. The first one is Citi. Citi increased Micron. They maintain a buy, but they increased the price target from 140 to from 150 to 175, right? And it does seem like this Citi has been a little bit all over the place, but on August 22nd, they had a $150 price target. Now here on September 11th, they increased it to 175. I'll talk a little bit of why they did it in a bit, but I also want to go into another one. I always butcher this name, but I'm going to say Mizuho. No, completely butcher. But they increased the price target of Micron as well. So their previous price target that came out about a month ago was 155. Now it jumps up to 175. So two players here just increased their price targets by about $20 to $30, a little bit more for Micron, and still maintaining a nice buy rating. In the last week or so, we haven't seen any kind of really bearish from anybody that matters. Now, I talk about it in other episodes. I'm not too keen about price targets, but I do understand that they create some form of short-term momentum for the stock and create an excitement or fear if you kind of see maybe downgrades. So in the short term, it creates momentum for stock price. What I am more curious about is why they did it. Try to understand the reasoning. And let's jump in here with Micron. With Citi. So Citi, the first thing that Citi anticipates is that guidance for this upcoming earnings, which will happen on September 23rd, guidance will be well above expectations. They actually expect fourth quarter to be in line with overall analyst estimates. So they don't expect a massive beat in this earnings. What they do expect is a massive beat in guidance, driven by higher DRAM and NAND sales and pricing. The other thing is Citi does expect Micron to report much stronger than expected guidance on data center demand. Obviously, the data center market is where things are killing it. I mean, we just saw Oracle, right? Oracle just had a massive RPO suggesting that the demand for AI solutions are going to continue to grow. And it's not just HBM, it's DRAM, it's other type of memories that Micron also provides for the data center space. They have a great presentation which kind of discusses all the products, but regardless, the data center market continues to be a massive buyer. and they are expected to continue to be a massive buyer for the foreseeable future, especially with the type of RPOs that we see from Oracle and all the other companies out there. So for Citi, it makes sense. Long term, I could see the bullish scenario here. Now, the other one is the company, the analyst that I butcher, so I'm not even gonna bother with them. But they believe that the AI boom continues to be a massive player, and they expect it to benefit from improved pricing in DRAM and NAND, with AI-driven tailwinds supporting the company's HBM share gains, particularly through its partnership with NVIDIA. The analyst also foresees additional momentum in 2025 as AI device adoption accelerates, estimating that AI PCs and handsets will require double the DRAM and NAND content compared to traditional devices. While acknowledging that maybe some of the yield issues with Micron's HBM has limited margin expansion in November quarter, analysts anticipate further margin improvements by calendar 2025 as HBM accounts for a larger portion of revenue and utilization rates for traditional DRAM and NAND increase. So they believe corrections in most consumer end markets is nearly complete. So that's going to give a nice tailwind in the future, but demand headwinds remain as refresh cycles for handsets and PCs look extended versus prior years. So overall, what this analyst believes is data center are going to continue to be strong. The consumer market will become a nice tailwind for Micron in the future. Now, obviously, with these two price targets, you are getting kind of a lot of excitement before earnings. Now, Micron has kind of priced in some of those high expectations. So even if Micron already delivers great results and already kind of increases guidance dramatically and beats guidance, the question is, how much has the market priced in? I always hear this question, oh man, the stock dropped after earnings, even though they beat in earnings and even though they beat in guidance. Why did that do that? It must be market manipulation. I don't think it's necessarily market manipulation. What ends up happening is this, is the excitement front runs the earnings with those expectations already expected. So if it does, I'm not saying there's going to be a decline, but if there is a decline, it's all dependent on how the market has things priced in. The other thing we have here is Japan readies a $3.6 billion for Micron to make cutting edge DRAM. So obviously Micron is expanding dramatically here in the United States. They're expected to spend some crazy billions of dollars in the United States, but it seems they're also expanding into other markets. In Japan, they are making an expansion, and it does seem like Japan is willing to give them some form of subsidized amount to make sure they continue to follow through. So pretty good to see the expansion. If Micron continues to expand, it means they see some form of demand coming in. Now, the final news I want to talk about is this. This is more of the competitors, but it's kind of maybe bullish for Micron. The United States has done a revocation of validated end user authorizations in the People's Republic of China. And I'll explain a little bit about this. But they are removing certain authorization lists for Intel, for Samsung, and SK Hynix. And for those that are not familiar, this validated end users are designated entities located in eligible destinations to which eligible items subject to the export administration regulations may be exported, re-exported, or transferred under general EAR authorization instead of a license. So in theory, we know that we can't send certain technology to China. But if you are in this list, you can bypass the license and just ship them over. And that's what they're ending. They're ending that list. So now if you want to ship some of those equipments that you theoretically couldn't before, or you could because you were part of the list, now you have to go through the license. This is going to be most likely denied. I think this is just United States, just making sure that during this HBM boom, you don't see any type of crazy technology entering that market. They rather make sure and track everything and produce any licenses if they want to send them or reject any licenses if they don't. I think this is actually a smart move by the United States government. For Micron, it's actually somewhat beneficial because SK Hynix and Samsung had some form of memory development there. So it's going to create maybe a little bit of tailwinds for some of the competitors. Now, I am going to guess that Samsung and SK Hynix expected something like this eventually. So it's not like they were expecting too much from those markets or from those industries. So I think it is controlled for them. But any slip up a little bit here and there can obviously create maybe some bullish momentum for Micron. Now, my overall thesis on Micron. I personally don't own it. I'm not going to continue to own it. I do believe the stock is getting pretty excited. I mean, look at this return in the past 6 months. I can also see the bullish opportunities. The HBM market, the memory market just continues to grow. I'd rather get excited in the AI space with the AI companies that I own. Now, this is one that obviously comes with a little bit more risk because it has the competition. And what happens when you have risk? When you have risk and you end up destroying those risks or showing that your company executed perfectly and those risks were non-existence at the end of the day, then you end up with a really great market grower. And that's where it is. There's some risk with it. With that risk is intended. If they do better than what the risk thought, this can be a multi-bagger. Now, if the risk come out and if this competitive market continues to be highly competitive in the next few years, you can kind of see a reduction in stock price, a strong reduction. The HBM market has created maybe a lot less cyclicality market and a lot less commodity market, at least for now. So I think in the short term, Micron will definitely continue to shock me. But regardless, I'm okay not owning the stock. Regardless, I hope the information that I provided was unbiased to some extent, and I tried to just provide more information. And that's why at the end, I decided to see if I was buying or selling. And I'm doing neither. I don't own, so I'm not selling, and I'm not in the rush to buy this stock either. So take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.